Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the State of Dallas podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for joining me. This is a tough one for Mustang fans to take because we're coming at you this week recapping a 34-17 loss in the battle for the Iron Skillet, and for SMU, a second straight loss, which is really just disheartening for the program right now. That is coming off of a 2-2 non-conference slate. Heading into conference play this weekend against Charlotte at 6:30 p.m. Central inside Ford Stadium. Appreciate you guys for being here as we'll break all that down. Part of the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Network, part of the Republic of Football Podcast Network. So check us out either on YouTube or on Apple, Spotify, wherever you catch your podcast at, as we break down another game for the Mustangs and look ahead to week 5 as they take on Charlotte at 6:30 p.m. Central on ESPNU. Look, for SMU, this is a difficult game to swallow because similar to the Oklahoma game, we see a team that has the opportunity to get a win and make a statement, and they don't. And I think that is the toughest piece for SMU fans once again, because this game, and we talked about this on the State of Dallas, and we talked about it on the Pony Express podcast and on the ponyexpress.com, which is where you could find my work, part of the On3 network. And we said, look, you've got to capitalize. You've got to score touchdowns. This isn't a game that when you go on the road, you can take field goals. Even against a TCU team that we didn't know just how good they were going into this. I mean, truthfully, they played a Colorado team and they lost. They gave up a ton of yards. Obviously, we saw Oregon embarrass Colorado this past weekend. Then they play Nichols. They look okay. They look good. They cleaned up things. Then they play a bad Houston team and take it to them. But what's the real TCU? And so I've got to give credit to TCU. Chandler Morris was excellent. Amani Bailey, who's I've always been high on. I really just enjoy watching him play. I watched him at Denton Guyer. I watched him at UL, Louisiana, when he was down there playing for the Raging Cajuns. I love Amani Bailey. Like he's the truth. For me, SMU, that opening drive, they go down 13, 14 plays or so. They dominate and they got down inside the 10, even missing a couple of big opportunities. They had a screen set up. They had another short pass set up that was, just kind of short armed into the dirt. And at the end of the day, they were in prime position, 3rd and 1. And look, Rhett Lashley and his staff, I think, in short yardage in this game, they did not do a good job. That whether it was calling a run, calling pass, whatever the call was, and also the players executing, they did not do a good job. I think they finished 5 of 15 overall on third downs, but when they got down in short yardage, they did not execute. And the opening drive, Preston Stone has an RPO from what Rhett Lashley said, where if he hands it off to Tyler Levine, and just kind of watching the replay back, I can't argue with him. Tyler Levine picks up the first down, maybe gets into the end zone, whatever, and they score on the opening drive, which is what they didn't do when they had a chance at Oklahoma to strike with their first touchdown. They ended up kicking a field goal. Then they kick that field goal. They take a 3-0 lead. Okay. You've kind of quieted the crowd. You just took up 6.5 minutes of time. Well, the defense, they were able to get a stop. But then SMU gets pinned back in their own territory. And then you're looking at you're looking at a 3rd and 1 and you pass it. And now Rhett today, when we talked to him with the media, said, well, I initially thought it was 3rd and 2, so we kind of went with the pass, one of our shot plays. But you have Tyler Levine in there, and everyone's expecting him to get the ball. And for the first 2 looks on 3rd and shorts, it said run. It said run. And I just wish there was some way that they could tag it and say, hand the ball off. We'll take our lumps. We're taking this decision out of your hands, whatever. And I know it's what makes their offense rather good moving the ball. I mean, like, let's be real. SMU, 416 yards. They fell off in the second half rushing the football. When you look at comparatively first half to second half for SMU, they ran in the first half for 123 yards. They ran for 35 in the second half, 213 total yards in the first half, and their yards per play in the first half, 5.5. In the second half, 5.8. They hit a couple deep chunks in the passing game, and they were in comeback mode and things like that. I think for me, the toughest piece of that is then they turn around and the next couple drives when they had 3rd and short and it was stacked. They had a 3rd and short and they had a 4th and short. It was stacked. It looked stacked. Then they ran the ball. And so it's like one of those things where, look, good players, which SMU has, can make bad play calls look good. And there are bad play calls that, there are good play calls that can help when things don't go, when things aren't able to maybe be as executed as well. And those were 4 examples of SMU kind of crossing in the wind there, where like you're not getting it out of either end, right? Like you're not getting the execution, you're not getting the play call too. That is the right play call for the situation, at least in my opinion. Monday morning quarterbacking it, and I think that was kind of, once again, there's only a couple of plays when the margin of error is so thin that determine a ball game. Against Oklahoma, block punt leads to a touchdown. Jalen Knighton's fumble, defense, is back out there on the field. They get a stop, but it stops SMU, who's driving way deep into the Oklahoma territory. Against TCU, opening drive, you need touchdowns. Rhett Lashley said it after the game, which is, again, kind of why I was like, what are we doing here? But he said, we need touchdowns. Ends up burning a timeout to think about it, kicks a field goal, move on. I mean, that's SMU burned 3 timeouts in the first half. And I felt like out of the 3, I, in the moment, felt like the offense's one was the least egregious because they had him in all 3 phases. But defense was in a bad call. They called timeout. They forced an incompletion. Good job. Special teams, they had an injury. They couldn't get a guy on the field. Obviously, things need to be cleaned up there. It's not like perfect, but you fixed it, and then you don't get your punt blocked, which is good. You fixed what you needed to. You got it done in the timeout. Boom, punt. For me, I wanted to see just a little bit more conviction out of Rhett Lashley in terms of what he was going to do, because you had dominated him. You called a perfect first drive. I mean, perfect. And, if RJ Maryland's able to get a good pass from Preston Stone, I think Jalen Knighton, that was one where I think he scooped it off the ground, and SMU ended up not getting to the line fast enough to snap it. And I think they called it back, if I'm remembering that right, as it happened. So you did everything in your what you needed to do to set your players up. Just trust yourself and trust your guys to pick up that first down on fourth and 2. I know it's 4th and 2 versus a 4th and 1, which was, the 3rd and 1 earlier, but you're on the road against a team that beat you last year. And if you look back on the history of SMU beating TCU, it's when they were more aggressive, whether it be with trick plays, which, by the way, I credit Rhett Lashley. I don't know if their staff listens or whatever, but they didn't run a jet flip or jet sweep. And they didn't run a reverse. And they had a very good offensive game plan, except they did not execute and they did not I think, put the players in the best position either in 3rd and short and their 4th and short situations. So, I mean, and the name of the game right now for SMU, that where the issue is putting up touchdowns against their 2 Power 5 opponents. They finish but they lost to Oklahoma 28-11, and they lost to TCU 34-17. That's 28 points in 2 Power 5 opponent games. I'm just looking up the Oklahoma score to just make sure I'm yeah. So that is not encouraging. And look, the AAC, if SMU struggles with an opponent or whatever in AAC play, it's my opinion that they're playing down to that competition. Because save for like a East Carolina, Memphis, I mean, I know Rice beat Houston, but like SMU should do very well in this conference. But they still have to finish drives. They have got to finish drives with touchdowns. And they've got to find ways to manufacture those points when it comes to finishing in the red zone. And when you look back on the TCU game, those key moments, that was it. That was church. And it was the same thing against Oklahoma. And they open the second half. They try a flea flicker. They get set up behind the chains, all of that. Well, they go 3 straight passes against TCU to open it after a long drive that the Horned Frogs had. And then they were able to completely control the third quarter. It set SMU's defense was able to hold the field goals and things like that, but they also had a touchdown in there. It just really hurt them overall, just kind of that key moment, just going 3 and out instead of either burning another 30 seconds or something. I don't know how much that changes things, but I just feel like in key moments there were just some mismanagement and it hurt. And the players, they've got to be better. I mean, if the read calls for Preston Stone to hand it off to Tyler Levine, Preston's been in the program 3 years, 2 of which now have been under Rhett Lashley's offense. Got to hand the ball off. And so those are the things where they have to get it corrected because, yes, the AAC is not as good as Oklahoma and TCU, but if you don't have your A game, you better be at least doing the right things from a reads and execution perspective and hoping that carries the day. So for me, I look at this game and you've got to flush it if you're SMU. And that it has to happen because it's an emotional game. It's a rivalry game, and they've got to be able to move on from it because they do open conference play with Charlotte. And Charlotte has played Maryland and Florida tough. I personally I think that's kind of fool's gold. I don't know because I don't think Maryland's that good. I know Florida beat Tennessee, but I don't think they're that good. Like there's probably a little bit of a line. They have some good quality transfers that can make life difficult, but they're also a program that very much is in the middle of a ton of change. So I'd like to see obviously SMU open up very strong this coming weekend against Charlotte. Back to the TCU game, I think defensively, hold on, let me finish. Let me back up. Offensively, to close out here, and I know it just took a while to explain a lot of the issues, but what was great was the run game. Jalen Knighton playing on a bum knee, or he's clearly banged up somewhere along his leg, was able to have success. But Kamar Wheaton was the one that got to start, and he had a terrific showing. 16 carries, 73 yards. Tyler Levine averaged 5 yards a carry. Both Kamar Wheaton and Tyler Levine had touchdowns on the day. That's the run game that while it wasn't as productive in the second half as SMU got behind, they really had to pass the ball more. That was encouraging. That was an encouraging showing from that group. And LJ Johnson wasn't able to go. He's probably going to be able to go against Charlotte and be healthy for that one. But the offensive line, missing Justin Osborne for most of the game, was awesome. I mean, and on top of that, they gave Preston Stone all day to throw the football. It was all around very, very good for SMU when it comes to what they were able to do running the football, doing all of those things. I just thought it was awesome. They were really, really, really good running the football. So you got to give SMU credit on that front in particular, just what they were able to do on that side of things. And it starts up front with the offensive line. I mean, I just think they did so well, just controlling the line of scrimmage against a TCU team that had just really hunkered down and stopped the run really well against Houston. So things are going in the right direction offensively between the 25s. It's figuring out how to get yourself in the best position in the red zone to capitalize and score touchdowns. That's the biggest thing that has to happen going forward for SMU as they get into conference play. Defensively, I really think this group played pretty darn well. I do. I think they were able to do a lot of the things that they wanted to in terms of like they weren't. I didn't notice like this athletic difference that at certain points throughout this rivalry we'd noticed in the past. Like they were able to execute because Chandler Morris made some incredible throws, which he deserves credit for. They schemed up some things really well, which I think is really important. Kendall Briles did a great job. But when the critical moments were there to be had and taken, TCU did that. TCU on third down, they were 6 of 15. Not great. They were 3 of 5 on fourth downs. They were 3 for 3, I want to say, at the half. SMU had opportunities to get a fourth down stop in the red zone. TCU ran kind of an option thing and picked it up. They had some other moments where they were able to pick it up and keep moving. I think for Scott Simons, it was a good step in the right direction. I think one thing that they wanted to see more of was their corners making more competitive plays on the ball. And he kind of said it. And when they were in zone at times, that was when TCU was able to time it up and hit the out route on a 3rd and 15 and pick it up. And they were able to just have a little enough space to pick up the first down. And it's a game where the margin of error is so small that you've got to be able to execute at certain times. And SMU wasn't able to do that when it came to defensively and offensively. But I think this defense, it's showing how tough they are because they were on the field for a long, long time. And if you look at the first half compared to the second half, SMU's defense, they were fresh. And SMU, SMU controlled the time possession 17:07 to 12:53. In the second half, TCU controlled it 16:55 to 13:05. SMU, I believe, won the time of possession by about 20 seconds overall. But it was that second half as the heat started to set in and TCU was able to run the ball, control the clock. I mean, SMU's defense held them 26 yards rushing compared to 166 in the second half. Stark difference. Stark difference. SMU was 150 able to hold them to 155 total yardage in the first half. I mean, that defense is rolling. What changed? They came out halftime and TCU dialed up a really good drive, and they were able to roll down the field and kick a field goal. SMU gets the ball back. They go 3 and out, 34 seconds. That was it. Then TCU drives right back down the field, field goal. Defense bowed up. The defense was on the field for 23 of the first 26 or so, 27, I guess, plays of the first half. or the second half. Then they finally broke and gave up a touchdown in the waning minutes of the third quarter. This defense played well enough for SMU to win. Before the game, we said SMU, what do they have to do? They have to hold TCU to under 30. In the final seconds, when SMU's selling out to go stop the run on fourth down, TCU gets a touchdown to Chase Curtis, 34 points. The offense, I think everybody knows, has to start holding up its end of the bargain when it comes to putting up touchdowns. It only goes so far to either outgain or control the clock. There needs to be a statement by putting points on the board in the form of touchdowns, because that will only help your defense too, just in terms of mindset. And saying, hey, our offense has got us. Let's go. Let's get that stop. Maybe somebody locks in a little bit, just a smidge more, and they're able to make a play on the ball. I will say this about the defense. They've got to find a way to start forcing turnovers. Once again, TCU in this game won the turnover battle. They win the football game. Points off, turnovers. Neither team had any, believe it or not. But again, you're sacrificing possessions. SMU's 2 turnovers. They're pressing in both situations, 2 interceptions by Preston Stone. But SMU's defense, if they could find a way to get off the field with a turnover or 2, that would be massive for them just overall. I think it'd be a weight lifted off of their shoulder. They have that ability to with some of the guys that they have on this team. But they've got to be able to do that. And just so far, it's not been good enough. They've had, moments, Louisiana Tech, Corey Roberson's interception return for a touchdown. They had another takeaway, I think, against Prairie View A&M, and all those things. But they've got to find a way to change how this lack of turnovers overall is going this season, because it's really tough to handle that side of things when it comes to not getting any turnovers and having a disruptive play that just ends the drive, gets you out of harm's way, and gets the offense back on the field, gives you an extra possession. In conference play, the biggest goal for SMU's defense should be, how do we force a turnover to give our offense more opportunities? That's the biggest thing that I would be honing in on in terms of what needs to happen, because that front group for SMU, they've been able to stay healthy. They're really physical, and they can control the line of scrimmage. 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks against TCU. They had a couple of others that really, really, really should have been able to get Chandler Morris down. They missed some tackles. They continue to have to clean that up. Again, the level of competition will kind of change in conference play, but you still want to see guys, when they have opportunities, take advantage of that, get guys on the ground, and make some plays that way. So that's about it for the TCU game. A quick reminder before we kind of look ahead to Charlotte and what needs to happen. We've had a ton of people use the biggameusa.com promo code, and that is BE on 3, the number 3 at the end there. You get 10% off your order and free shipping. If you're not a fan of SMU, look for your school's game ball on there. You'd still get free shipping and 10% off your order for whatever football you pick off the site by using promo code BE on 3 at biggameusa.com. This is the official game ball of SMU, designed by Preston Stone and the quarterbacks. You can check them out, buy them for the Boulevard, or again, buy your favorite college team's football that you can find on the site. Use promo code BE on 3 for 10% off your order. I think for me, when you look at going into league play, SMU needs, I don't want to say a reset, but they need to reset emotionally. They've had 2 very competitive Power 5 games against Oklahoma and TCU, and they have not necessarily played up to snuff offensively. I think defensively they played well, They've got to continue to get better tackling wise. But this was a 2-2 football team in non-conference play that probably feels like they either let some people down or they feel like they left some opportunities out there. Maybe both. But just looking at how disappointed the players were after the TCU game, that's something that they are going to have to get on the right. They weren't in a situation where they that they kind of they were, either situation was too big for them, that they couldn't handle it emotionally. They were on the right track with everything for both games. They just missed out on key opportunities, and that's why they're 2-2. So I think when I look at this game, the biggest thing as I try to predict it is SMU's maturity being the key here for me. And that's why I'm picking SMU to win this one. I think they've got to come out firing. The over-under set at 52.5. The spread currently favors SMU minus 23.5 from what I'm seeing. I think for me, I like SMU here. I don't love them to cover, although I said this week the line doesn't surprise me. But Charlotte, in my opinion, is so Jekyll Hyde. But I could see this game being like Louisiana Tech, where SMU is in complete control. Do they end up covering 23.5? Let's say if it jumps to 24, that's like, all right, so if SMU wins 31-7, that's a push. 23.5, Vegas is really good. That's a cover, but is Charlotte better than Louisiana Tech? Probably, just by a stretch. So for me, I would say I'm going to pick SMU to win 38-10. Or I guess that would be covering. But I don't know. I don't buy that Charlotte is this team that is going to give such a challenge to SMU just because they played two teams that, at least in my opinion, I don't think are this really, really good, strong, especially offensively with both schools programs in Maryland and Florida. So we'll see. 35 or 38-10. I think SMU's defense is able to control this one in a big way. When you look at Charlotte overall, they've won 24-3 against SC State. They lost 20-38 against Maryland. They lost 41-25 to Georgia State at home. Georgia State playing well. but still. And then at Florida, they lost 22-7. So defensively, the Charlotte team does have the ability to play hard. I think for me, knowing how kind of average Florida is offensively, I've got to give SMU a chance to open it up on Charlotte and take some frustrations out. I think SMU wins either way. I think we'll learn a lot about the offense after we see how this game against Charlotte goes, because they do have some guys up front that could present some issues, but SMU's offensive line is coming off a really, really good outing. On the flip side, you've got to get more out of your wideouts, your skill players, all of those things. Rhett Lashley talked about, hey, maybe there is credence to a pecking order truly being established at wide receiver instead of rotating. But overall, SMU sitting in a good spot to pick up win number 1 in the AAC. We'll see how it goes Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. Central on ESPNU. Subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com. Check out our work there covering recruiting and team. And for those who have missed it, SMU did pick up a commitment last week from quarterback Keelon Russell, the 4-star out of Duncanville High School, the top 100 prospect and top 10 quarterback for On3 Sports, committed to SMU on Thursday evening, basically right after we recorded our last week edition. Keelon committed to the Mustangs. That gives SMU a even better top 10 2025 class. They sit, I believe, number 6 in the country right now, number 1 class in the ACC, and giving them a quarterback like Keelon Russell who could throw it, run it. He's got a really good release. It gives them more juice recruiting the state of Texas. This is a high school program that is coming off a state championship. They look like they're going to win another one, quite honestly, early on this season. And Keelon Russell, a guy who picked SMU over offers from, all over, but mainly Ole Miss as of late. That was a team that had the most buzz around him leaving the summer alongside SMU. He just has so much ability to make plays on the run, extend plays. He's accurate. He's got a weapon there in DeCorian Moore. We all know that. But for the most part, he's in a fairly run-heavy attack, but he distributes the ball very well. He can move around, make plays. SMU getting one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Keelon Russell, a state champion who's just entering his second full season or his first full season as a starter. He actually started last year as the backup, but a guy who just has it all. Really mature kid. He's going to grow into a big kid at the college level, I think, and he's still got that ability to move around. So what a pickup for SMU out of Duncanville in Keelon Russell last week. That was massive news for the Mustangs. So I wanted to pass along that piece of recruiting news before we wind things down on this edition of the State of Dallas podcast. So we appreciate you guys listening. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, or check out the Republic of Football podcast, wherever you catch them at. We will catch you guys next week with another edition recapping SMU Charlotte and looking ahead to the bye week. We'll see what's up with the Mustangs after their first game in the AAC comes this weekend. SMU Charlotte, 6:30 p.m. Central on ESPNU. Follow us at ontheponyexpress.com. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and we'll catch you next time.